Good morning. Welcome to the Android market session. My name is Eric Chu, and I'm responsible for the Android developer ecosystem. To help us get started with this session, let me set a little bit of context for Android market. We launched Android market about 2.5 years ago with the first Android device. Our simple goal was to connect developers from around the world with great products with users from around the world who are interested in these products. During this period, we saw tremendous growth in adoption by carriers, by OEMs, by developers, and by users in the Android community. But for today, what we want to do is talk about Android market from the perspective of developers. So there are 4 things I'd like to cover today. The first one is customers. So who are these users downloading applications from Android market? What are they interested in? My goal is to give you a little bit more information to help you better target your product, to help you better plan your business. The second thing is distribution tools. It's very important for us to make sure that Android market provide the best tools to make it easy for you to distribute your products. So we're going to share with you a few things that we've been working on. Third is merchandising. Android market is a marketplace. It's important for us to make sure that we do everything we can to help you merchandise your product on Android market. So I think you're going to like what some of the things we're announcing and launching today. And the last thing is monetization. We actually have been investing and increasing our investment in this area over the last 6 months. So I'm going to share with you some of the early results that we're already seeing based on the investment that we've been making. So why don't we get started? So the first one is customers. So who are these customers? So yesterday at the keynote, we announced that we are now activating 400,000 devices on a daily basis. I'm sure many of you agree that's a very impressive number. But what's even more impressive if you look at the growth rate in terms of how fast we're adding these new users. Last year at Google I/O, we announced we were adding 100,000 new users on a daily basis. So what that means is within a span of 12 months, we quadruple the number of new users we add on a daily basis. Not only are we adding a lot of new users every day, we're increasing the rate and how in terms of adding new users. But having a large and growing install base, while it's important, is only one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is, are these users actually downloading applications? So when we went back and looked at some of our 2010 data, what we found is that by the middle of 2010 last year, the number of applications users on Android market were downloading already exceeded all the application download in the previous year and a half. By the end of last year, only a few months ago, Android market users download 8 times as many apps that they've done previously. So we're seeing tremendous growth in terms of these users' interest in downloading applications. And we look at 2011 data, we're seeing the same pattern. By the end of Q1, we already exceeded the first 3 quarters in terms of download numbers compared to Q1 this year. And looking at the data today, actually, well, the data yesterday, we're exceeded the number of users download in all of 2010. So as you can see, the increase that we're seeing in terms of device activation is clearly translating in rapid increase in application consumption, and that's good news. Now let's take a look at where the action is coming from. So the first thing we looked at is in Q1 of this year, if you look at the US numbers compared to the same period last year, we activated 3 times as many devices we did last year in the same period. That's very impressive. But what's even more impressive, if you look at all the device activation outside the US, we activated 18 times as many devices as we did outside the US market. So the international market is really picking up. This is thanks to, for example, in Korea, we saw within the same period, Korea activated 50 times as many devices as they did this Q1 of last year. Japan 40 times, followed by UK, Germany, and France. All these countries seeing a huge increase in device activation. To put it in context, last year this time, About 70+% of the devices that we activated were from the US. Today, about over 60% of the devices we activated are outside of the US. So if you guys have been focusing only on the US market, it's time to pay attention to the international market. We've seen the same pattern from a consumption perspective. US currently represent about 40% of the application consumption on the Android market, followed closely by Korea and Japan. Right. The key piece of information I want you guys to take away is that US is definitely growing very, very fast. It continues to be a very important market, but even more important is to pay attention to the international market. We also took a look at the download of applications by users on different versions of device with different versions of Android. And contrary to common sense, and for those of you who are familiar with install base, majority of the devices we have currently running that are interacting with the Android market are running either Android 2.1 or 2.2. However, what we're seeing is that Android 2.3, Gingerbread devices, these users are download on the average more than 2 times as many apps as the users running 2.2 or 2.1. And Honeycomb, those users downloading 2.5 times more applications. So what we're seeing is that not only should you pay attention to the size and install base, it's also important to pay attention to the behavior of these users and really understand which group of users are heavy consumption of applications. So now switch gear a little bit, let's kind of go in a little bit further and look at what's happening within the different categories of applications. So if you look at overall, in terms of overall application across all the different categories, what we're seeing is that entertainment, games, and tools continue to have the largest supply of applications. So developers love to build these type of products. The good news is users also like these products. So games, entertainment, and tools remain the 3 most popular type of applications that people are downloading. But what we're also seeing is that media, like audio, video, travel, local, in these areas, these are also extremely popular with users. So what we've seen there is that users gravitate towards branded products. They gravitate towards brand or services that have access to premium services. So in this case, fewer applications account for a larger percentage of download. Now, when we took a look at pay apps alone, games clearly is the #1 leader. Android users love games, and arcade is the most popular across all different game categories. The other thing we find interesting is that we find Android users to be more, at least we think they're more technically savvy. They're very interested in purchasing tools and utilities to add additional capabilities to their devices. Ever since we launched Live Wallpaper, the combination of Live Wallpaper, widgets, alternative launchers, we've seen personalization propel into the #3 spots. And we've seen, as a matter of fact, one of the developers in our sandbox has an alternative launcher, and he launched a product, I think maybe a couple of months ago. He's extremely, extremely happy with the number of downloads and the amount of revenue that he's generating from his application. The last thing I want to mention on this slide is productivity. Productivity has remained one of the top categories on the Android market since the beginning. But in this category, what we see is that a few applications, documents to go or exchange connectivity, represent the bulk of the revenue. So in these cases, these are not applications that are $1 or $2. These are relatively expensive applications. They're doing really well in terms of number of downloads and also doing very well in terms of revenue. So I hope the information we share with you is going to help you better understand who some of these users are, what they're interested in. And our goal is to kind of help you to better target your investment and to really take advantage of the install base that we have. So the next section I want to talk about is distribution tools. As I mentioned earlier, this is a very important area for us. We want to make sure Android market remains the best marketplace to make it easy for you to distribute your applications. But before I go into it, I think it's important for me to also spend a few minutes to address some of the common questions that we get from developers in terms of how they should package their application for Android and Android market for distribution. So the number one most common question we get from developers is, what advice do we have for them in how they should package their Android application for different versions of Android? Well, this is precisely why we make this information available on developer.android.com. As you can see, Android 2.2 and 2.1 represent the bulk of the install base. If you look at the number of releases of Android we've done over the last 2.5 years, we've been very aggressive innovating and adding new features on a very rapid pace. But what we're seeing is that our carrier and OEM partners are actually keeping pace with us. We've been looking at this pie chart actually for about 12 months. At any given point, we typically see 2 releases of Android being dominant at any given point. So our partners are actually tracking with us and updating their devices with the latest release of Android as quick as they can. And in case you missed the announcement yesterday, many of our top partners, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, Samsung, LG, HTC, all announced that they're committed to upgrade their devices for 18 months to the latest release of Android. What that means for you guys is that you can count on even more rapid convergence to the latest release of Android and give you a great platform to innovate. However, what also means from a developer perspective is that Android as a platform actually gives you a lot of flexibility. You can easily build your application with one binary. And because of a commitment to backward compatibility, that application can work across many different versions of OS. In addition, we're also putting facility allowed to use features like reflection that allows you to also have one binary that can both take advantage of new APIs on new devices and at the same time and still run on Android device running older versions. Another question we get asked a lot is, what about all the different screen sizes? Again, this information is available on developer.android.com. 2 screen sizes, HVGA and YVGA, represent 93% of volume. As a matter of fact, YVGA represents over 75% of volume. If you go to developer.android.com, you can get all the details. What that means for you as a developer is that if you decide to build your apps in such a way that you target only a few screen sizes, you can easily do that and get to the bulk of the install base. But why limit yourself? Android, as a framework, actually have a lot of facility to make it easy to help your application scale and look good on devices with different screen sizes. You can easily build your application as a single binary with a single resource and have it run on many different devices. For those developers who, in some cases, a lot of these cases, these are game developers who want to really have a lot more precise control. They want to have the perfect, graphics for, the exact screen sizes. We also provide a facility for them to have a single binary that's supported by multiple resource bundles. What about 3D? Many of you ask, can I count on OpenGL ES 2.0? Well, the answer is yes. About 90%, over 90% of the devices today that are touching Android market support OpenGL ES 2.0. So you can absolutely take advantage of these advanced 3D capabilities. Or again, the framework provides the ability for you to build your application in such a way so you can run across both types of devices. So many of the developers today are already taking advantage of this capability, building one application run on many devices. So I decided to go to the Android market and look for a few examples. The first example I found is Post News. It's a popular news application. This developer built the application to run on Android 1.5 and higher devices. They're designed to run on all the different screen sizes of Android devices, all the densities. So consequently, this application runs on 99% of the devices that access Android market. As a matter of fact, this developer has never seen Android 3.1, so we just launched Android 3.1 yesterday, and Post News worked flawlessly on Android 3.1. Now let's shift gear a little bit. Let's talk about gaming. Rovio Angry Bird Rio is a popular 2D game. In this case, this developer decided to target the application for Android 1.6 and higher. They support small, normal, and large screen sizes, 3 densities, and in this case, because they decided not to support Android 1.5 devices, which is a very, very small segment of the population, Angry Bird Rio runs on 97% of the devices that access the Android market today. So Kenneth Louie from the team, he is an Angry Bird addict. So I know he's been playing Angry Bird on many different devices. So why don't you show us what you've been doing with Angry Bird here?
Sure. Hi everyone. Thanks, Eric. So we're going to switch over to the Elmo here. All right, so this will give you a visual of what Eric was talking about. Rovio decided that they wanted to address a wide range of users. And in order to do that, they really needed to address Can you switch this? Is it fixed now?
I think you need to play it upside down.
Let me play it upside down for you. There you go.
Oh.
There we go. So, I'm sorry? Okay.
I thought you know how to play this game upside down.
Yes, there we go. So they needed to address a wide variety of different devices. And as you can see here, we have coming up from the HTC Tattoo here, all these devices support 1.6 and above. We are ranging from QVGA devices to HVGA to wide VGA, all the way up to the Galaxy Tab and the Zoom tablet screen sizes. And because of the way that I actually developed this application, as you can see, it runs very optimally across all these different devices. What's even more important to note, I think, is that when they developed and deployed this application, many of these devices already existed, so it ran on those devices. But since that application has been deployed, many new devices has also appeared on the market as well. Now, obviously, you do need to do some testing on some of these devices, which they've actually done a very good job of scaling to different devices. But it shows that you can actually use one APK without having to target a specific device and be able to address a large range of devices. And I think the result shows because a lot of people download it. Lots and lots, we see lots of volume, and then also the rating is really good from the users as well.
So Kenneth, this Zoom tablet is running Android 3.1, right?
Yes.
So again, Rovi have never seen this tablet before.
Exactly.
They probably have a chance to test it.
Right, we just put it on and it works.
Great, thank you. So another application I want to highlight is, some of you may say, what about more sophisticated game? So Glue has a game called Gun Bros. It's a 3D multi-user game. And in this case, they decided performance is really important for them, so they target Android 2.0 and higher. They target devices screen size normal, large, extra large, so they know about tablets, so definitely design the application to also run on tablet. In this case, their application with multiple resource bundle, because in this case, they really want to have more control of the graphical asset on different screen sizes, runs on 94% of devices. So even for a very high-end 3D game, it's absolutely possible for you to build your application with, in this case, with additional resource bundle and support many, many different devices. So stepping back, what we really try to do with Android as a platform is giving you the flexibility to build your application for extremely, extremely wide distribution, right? Both in terms of from a geo perspective, from a hardware capabilities perspective, and also in terms of APIs perspective. At the same time, we also recognize that there are developers who want very precise control and precise targeting how to deploy the application. And this is where Android Market comes in. So Android Market is designed to complement Android as a platform, working hand in hand to make it extremely easy for you to, number one, from a business targeting perspective, target your application to run on all countries, a subset of countries, or any of the carriers within these countries. At the same time, from a capabilities perspective, we also give you the ability and the flexibility, if you choose to, target specific OS versions, specific screen sizes, specific OpenGL versions, and whatnot. So we give you a lot of control in how you can target your application. However, we've also heard requests from a lot of developers, for those developers who really want to target the application. They really want to have more tools to help them understand if they choose to only, let's say, support 2 or 3 versions of the Android platform, what devices will be available to them. So I'm pleased to announce, starting today on the Android Market Pub site, based on the manifest of your application, so you get to declare and define it, you can easily upload your application, either publish or draft, see all the devices that your application will be visible to. You also have the option, if you want to basically opt out of some of the devices. So Kenneth, why don't you kind of walk through, show us what this looks like?
Sure. Okay, what you see on the screen here is the developer publishing site. We're looking at an application which is timerific. And if I scroll down to where some of the targeting options are, we have the country and carrier targeting that Eric talked about earlier. And also, now in addition, you see a section which is called supported devices. So within supported devices, it'll tell you what screen layouts is supported by this application. It also gives you a count, right? If you notice, there's a number here which says this application is available to over 388 devices. So we can actually click into it and see what those exact devices are. So if I click into it, it will be listed by manufacturer. Each manufacturer has different models. And let's pick one of these. Let's say Acer, show more. And I can actually see what devices are included in that group of devices, that this application is available to. I can also choose to exclude them. But let me show you another application that timerific that we're in draft mode that we're about to launch. So this is an application that actually has a higher platform requirement. It's the same screen size layout, but you see that in addition to what we saw earlier, we have now a smaller number of devices. So now this application is available for 346 devices. This is the paid version of the one that I just showed you. Now, if I go into show devices, we see the same list. But if I click onto, for example, Dell, you will actually see that there are Dell devices that are supported up there. But there are also devices that are not supported. So the Dell Aero, for example, in this case is a 1.5 device, and it tells you it is unsupported because of your manifest settings. Now, I can also, for example, manually, let's say if I wanted to, for some reason, exclude the Dell Streak, click on exclude. Now I have automatically excluded devices as well as manually excluded devices as well. So now you see that, yes, the number is 346 devices. It'll also tell you how many devices are manually filtered as well.
Thank you, Kenneth. Another feature many developers ask us for is, in some cases, developers may have multiple versions of the application for a particular product. They may want to have one version supporting, let's say, Android 2.1, 2.2, and then a version supporting a tablet. So starting in June, we're also going to be launching a new feature we call multi-APK. What it does, it allows developers to have different versions of the application, supporting different versions of the Android operating system, different screen sizes, different texture format, all be listed under a single product listing. Android Market You guys like this one better than the other one? Anyway, Android Market will automatically deliver the right APK to the right device. What you also get as a developer is that all the user ratings, comments, and billing all be aggregated as a single product. And again, this will be available in June. The next thing that we get asked a lot, Android users love gaming, as I mentioned earlier. And as Android goes into the tablet space, and if you look at some of the great games that we're showing right now in the sandbox, these are extremely, extremely high-resolution games. In many cases, they are ports coming from consoles. And these games take up a lot of space. So starting in June, we're also going to increase the size of application support from current 50 megabyte to 4 gigabyte. Android Market will manage for you the different pieces you upload, the application plus the resource bundle to support the application. All of it will be hosted on Android Market. So for some of you who have been dealing with secondary download, we're going to take care of all that for you. And we'll download all the pieces into these Android devices. The next thing is, now that your app is published. We also want to make it extremely easy for you to start setting up marketing campaign for your products. So yesterday, we announced one-click integration with AdMob, which makes it extremely easy for you right from the Android Market Developer Portal to launch, to initiate setup of an AdMob campaign for your application. The integration doesn't touch your application, but what it does is it's smart enough to send the right information, like your application manifest information, to AdMob to help make sure that you can set up your campaign to target the right devices that can support your application. And again, this was launched yesterday. The last thing I want to talk about is now that your application is published, you want to know how it is doing. So 6 weeks ago, we launched Application Stats. What it does is give you a comprehensive view of the download performance of your application across different country, different language, different OS, different screen sizes. What we also provide is how your application does compared to the same application, or the application in the same category. In addition, 3 weeks ago, we launched monthly sales reporting. Our goal there is to give you the ability to be able to download monthly sales report, so you can load it into your own system, load your own spreadsheet, do your own analysis, do your own tax reporting and whatnot. So 3 weeks ago, we launched with the month of March. I'm happy to announce, if you go to your pub site, we now have sales report all the way back to January 2010. So as you see, we've done a lot of work investing in one, making it easy for you to manage and how you distribute your application. At the same time, we're also invested in giving you more and more information how you manage your business. You can expect us to continue to invest in this area. Then the next thing I want to talk about is merchandising. As I mentioned earlier, Android Market is a marketplace. So it's important for us to do everything we can to make it easy for you to merchandise your product. So a few months ago, we launched Android Market on the website. And our goal there is, number one, we want to increase the service area to make it easier for us and make it possible for us to merchandise and showcase even more products. At the same time, we want to provide a convenient landing place when you promote your applications. You can promote your application and either direct the clicks to the device, the Android Market client on the device, or you can direct them to the website where users can easily check out your application, initiate a purchase download, and have the application automatically pushed into your device. But we know there's a lot more we can do. So let me walk you through what some of the things we are launching today. So many of you are familiar with the list just in. That's how all new application starts. A new application comes to the Android Market, it's going to just in. Then these more adventurous users who are always looking for the latest application will find these applications, find out what they like, download it, play with it, provide some comments. But if I were a developer, I wouldn't just stop there and just load my app into just in. I would be thinking about what should I be doing to drive more eyeballs to my application. This is extremely important because unless you generate some velocity to generate some downloads, you're not going to make it to some of the other lists that people are looking at in terms of what apps they should be downloading. You should also think about viral marketing. Right? Look at who you can partner with, look at who affiliates and whatnot, what you can do to, again, generate more eyeballs for your application. But last but not least, it's absolutely critical for you to pay attention to the comments and the feedback from users and update your application frequently. Those initial set of comments or rating can either really help propel you to the more interesting list, or they can potentially really damage your ability to get eyeballs for your applications. Now, if you're a user, if you're a developer that have multiple products on Android Market, you also get the benefit that on the apps detail page of each application, we'll also showcase other applications from the same developer. But what if you're a brand new developer? You've never launched any application on Android Market. How do you find your way to get above all the noise, since we have thousands and thousands of applications coming to Android Market on a weekly basis? So I'm pleased to announce, starting today, we're adding a new list on the Android Market webpage, top page, called Trending. Trending is aimed at showcasing those applications that's getting a lot of downloads within a short period. One way to think about it is that these are the apps that are really, really hot right now. We're also launching 2 additional lists, Top New Pay and Top New Free. The goal of these lists is to really showcase applications that are brand new, less than 30 days old, but they're very popular with users. In addition, we're refactoring the top free and top paid lists to really focus on showcasing applications that are getting a lot of downloads from users. And then last but not least, we're also launching a new list called Top Grossing. This list is aimed to showcase those revenue generators, both for initial download and in-app billing. And so any developers with more higher price applications that generate a lot of revenue, but maybe not as much download, we expect those type of applications to show up here. Now, in order to make this list more relevant to each user in each country, starting today as part of this launch, these lists will be regionalized for the top countries around the world. So for example, if you're a user in the US, what you see in the top grossing list will be the top grossing applications targeted for the US market. Not for Korea, not Japan, but for the US. So Kenneth, can you walk through what some of these lists look like?
Sure. So let's start from this chart, which Eric just went through, and go into a little more details about how you could actually get on these lists. So the first one being more from developer. So now you have ability to actually cross-sell and list your applications. So if you're already installed, you can very easily let the user see what other applications you have. Now let's get into some of the new lists. Now, if I scroll down here, you actually see trending apps. And this is actually that's the actual list that we have right now. So if you look at some of these trending apps, these are actually very, very good examples. Google Music, WebMD, and Adidas and Groupon. Some of these are newly launched applications, so their actual absolute number of installs is actually not very big, probably right now. But they're growing very quickly. So we're looking at something like, which is, let's say in the last day, what is the download trend of these applications? So if we show acceleration, then these applications will actually get into this list. Now, if you see something like Groupon, Groupon is an existing application, but they just posted a major release. So even if it is an existing application, you can actually get onto the trending list as well if you're generating a lot of installs. So that's what trending is, and this sort of application shows that. Now, if we go further into the top new and paid and free, you can see that now we actually have numbered lists as well. So these are actually, it says number 1, Robot Unicorn, number 2, Talking Lila, the fairy. So we now actually have ranked lists in the top new and top paid. So if we click on one of them, you will actually see a longer list of application. Again, they all have a numeric value, a ranking next to them. And we actually show these apps that are in the top new and top new free and paid. And what this is trending was a 1 day. Top new now actually looks into applications that are not older than 30 days and actually showing a weekly download of installations and putting them into this rank list. Continuing onto the list, now if your application does really well and continues to do well beyond the 7 days, then we have the top free and top paid applications. So now you actually make it into this list in terms of installations. And then finally, top grossing, which is the sale of the application. Now, Eric also mentioned that while we're looking at an English version of this website, I also started another session. Now, if we look at this session, this is showing the Korean list that users in Korea would actually see. So first of all, it's localized. And then also, if we pay attention to what the top lists are listing, you see some of them are global English applications. But if we actually scroll down, for example, KakaoTalk, Dawn, a couple others that I actually don't know how to pronounce, but these are Korean applications. But what's important to note is that we're not just filtering these applications based on the country, but these are actual behavior of users downloading applications in those countries, and that's how we're computing that list so that it's locally relevant for the country, that the users in those countries.
Thank you. So in addition to these top lists that we make available at the top pages in the Angel Market website, we also have done some work at the details by page of each of the application into cross-selling to other applications So there are two new lists that we're introducing. The first list is really aimed at showcasing applications that are similar or related to the applications you're looking at. The second list is really targeted at showcasing companion applications. So user who download this application also downloads these other applications. So Kenneth, can you show us a little bit what that looks like?
Sure. Now, I'm actually looking at a specific example of an application, which is slided keyboard. So within the app detail page, if I look on the left-hand side, number one, I have the more from developer, which we looked at before. But then we also have a list of applications here. So users who looked at the slided keyboard also viewed Swift Key, Thumb Keyboard, Smart Keyboard, and Better Keyboard. So that's what people are kind of comparison and looking at what fits them most. If I look at the list below that, it also says users who install this also install. So these are some of the, in addition to the application that the users install, they also install these type of applications. So it makes sense because now these are actually all the language packs for this keyboard. Just to give you one more example, on the Zillow page, for example, you'll see that users who view this also view Trulia, Realtor.com, and also Hotpad. So those are kind of applications that people are deciding, do I use Trulia or do I use Zillow? And then also, users who installed this application looked at Homes.com, Zip Realty, Real Estate Answers as well. So they are likely to have both of those applications. So now there's more ways to actually, relate in relation to the users, what they're installing, also recommending some applications for them that they might consider.
Thank you. So in addition to these new lists, our team will continue to look for great application showcase in terms of editorial featuring. And the last thing I want to mention one more thing I want to mention here is personal recommendations. So in June, we're also planning to launch a new list on the top page. It was aimed at really showcasing users applications that they might be interested in based on the application they've downloaded before. So Kenneth, can you quickly show us what we have here?
Sure. Okay, so Eric talked about featuring, which continues to be our editorial list of applications. If I switch into another page, you'll actually see this is the My Library tab. And so here's a user who's very interested in real estate and also in golf applications. So if I go back and see what the personal recommendations are, let's scroll down. Past the trending list. In the section that's called Apps for You, you'll see that there are also other applications like Score Mobile. So it thinks that you've downloaded some golfing applications. You might be interested in sports applications. You've downloaded some real estate applications. So Homes.com, Century 21, those might be also applications that you might be interested as well. So these are things, looking more specifically to that user based on what you have as a portfolio of applications that you've downloaded. Here are some additional sets of applications that you might be interested in.
Thanks. As you can see, we went from a few lists that we had before to showcasing applications to now 12 lists. And this, we believe, will go a long way to really showcase many different applications based on different life cycles, whether it's a brand new application or an application getting a lot of download right now, or it's an application that's been really popular for a while. We have lists that they really showcase these great applications. But we think there's more we can do. We think there's more we can do in terms of really help users quickly find what are some of the best applications on the Android market. We also think that there are things we can do to really give developers recognition for those developers who are committed to Android and invested and have a consistent track record of building great applications. So I'm pleased to announce, starting today, we're launching Editor's Choice for Android market. So Editor's Choice is aimed at providing consumers information and making it easier for them to find the best Android applications on the marketplace. In addition, we're also going to be launching the Top Developer Badge. So Top Developers is aimed at recognizing those developers who have a strong track record on Android, and they've consistently built great applications. And we want to give some indication so that when a user looks at applications from these developers. We want to provide a little bit more information to help users feel comfortable that these are the right developers they can trust, they can download application from. So Ken, can you show us what it looks like?
Right, so looking at these applications, if we look into the details below the icon, you can see that some of these are actually has the editor's choice as well as the top developer. So a few of these applications actually have those. So for example, if I look at, in this example, Amazon Mobile, that's the top developer, and then also it's also an editor's choice application as well. We also have a section here which lists all the current editor's choice. So if we click on that, you'll see a list of applications that have been selected editorially as the editor's choice applications.
Great, thanks. So as part of the launch today, we started with a set of applications that we actually spent a lot of time looking at and making sure these are some of the best applications that run on many devices. It also spent a lot of time looking at many developers that are currently in the market and trying to pick out those developers that have a great track record. In the coming months, we plan to continue to look for more and more applications to add to this list and more developers to add to the top developer list. So to sum it up, if you look at, from a merchandising perspective, we've done a lot of work to increase real estate in terms of how we promote applications. We've made these lists relevant based on each country, and we'll also provide recognition for developers' great apps and those great apps that we think users really look at downloading. All of this is live on Android Market right now, and within the next 30 days or so, we're also going to be bringing these capabilities to the Android Market client device. With that, I'd like to bring Paul up to show you what it's going to look like on the device.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, my name is Paul Montoy-Wilson, and I'm a product manager on Android Market. Yesterday at the keynote, we announced that there are over 200,000 applications on Android Market. With so many applications, we are working so hard to help users find and install more great applications. What this means is there's an opportunity to get your great applications in more places on the phone. I'd like to give you a demo of that. Am I not strong enough? Ooh, a little too strong. Oh, got it. Perfect. Thank you. Alrighty. So with that, I'm on the home page of Android Market. And we have an updated feature section to highlight the greatest applications. From the feature page, I can easily swipe to view the categories. And also access the top list. In addition to the top charts that are currently available on Android Market, I'm excited to say that the lists Eric just announced will also be available, like the top new charts. It's faster and easier to explore more applications, which means users will find more and install more applications. My dad just bought his first Android phone and has never installed an app before. When he opens up Android Market for the first time, it's going to be a great place for him to check out the editor's choice apps, an essential set of some of the best apps on Android Market. For me, I'm an avid app user, and so what I like to do is every morning when I wake up, I like to swipe over to the top new charts and check out to see which apps are new and popular. I was excited to see and discover ESPN's new live application that streams ESPN 360. We have redesigned the app details page and brought screenshots to the top to highlight your most valuable assets. In addition, we've added more applications from this developer directly on the details page so users can continue to browse. When I'm ready to install this application, the download is just a click away. We have worked hard to streamline the browse, purchase, and download experience so users will find and install more applications. I'm excited to see how this new Android Market client for the phone will help you be successful on Android. Thank you.
So the last section we want to cover is monetization. As I mentioned earlier, this is an area that we've been increasing investment over the last 6 months. What we're seeing is that we're actually already starting to see the fruit of our labor. If you look at our 2011 Q1 revenue compared to the same period last year for the US, we saw a 3x increase in Android Market revenue. But what's even more amazing when you look at the increase in revenue outside of the US, we saw a 30x increase in revenue. In countries like UK, Germany, France, we saw 7 to 8 times increase compared to the same period last year. In Japan, with the support of carriers such as KDDI, Docomo, SoftBank, we saw a 100x increase in revenue in Japan compared to the same period. And we think one of the key things we need to continue to invest in to really drive the increase in revenue is to increase the number of buyers in Android Market. So over the last 4 quarters or so, we've already seen a 6.5 times increase in Android Market buyers from same time last year compared to this year. So a few things we're doing to further drive that growth. Number one, at Google I/O last year, Android Market was available for buyers in 14 countries. In September, we increased that number to 32 countries. I'm pleased to announce over the next week or so, we'll be introducing Android Market for buyers in 99 additional countries. That puts a total of 131 countries where people can buy your products. The other area that we've been investing in is direct carrier billing. For you as a developer, you don't have to do anything. Carrier billing is just a form of payment underneath that you don't have to worry about. It's just like a credit card, just like Visa, just like MasterCard. As we add additional carriers, you get that for free. We've already integrated with AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint. We're also integrated with a few carriers in Japan, and we're already seeing great results. When we look at one of the major US carriers that we integrated with, direct carrier billing now represents approximately 50% of the sales transactions. That means US users are definitely using carrier billing as a way to buy applications. And when you look at what's happening in Asia, the result is even more dramatic. Within a short period of time after we launched carrier billing, for this particular carrier, we saw sales transaction double. The last thing I want to talk about this area is my personal favorite. So 45 days ago, we launched in-app billing on Android Market. We're starting to see a few applications take advantage of in-app billing. But what's really interesting is that right now, these few applications represent 14% of the average daily revenue in Android Market. A few applications. In-app billing applications, based on data we're seeing right now, monetize 25 times more than the counterpart on the pay app side. And you just heard we launched a top grossing list. If you go to that list on the website, you'll find 9 of the top 10 grossing applications. And these are brand new applications considering we just launched in-app billing. 9 of the top 10 applications are in-app billing enabled. 9 of the top 10 games are in-app billing enabled. So if you have not looked at in-app billing, I highly, highly recommend you to take some time to check that out. So we share a lot of information with you. We share a lot of data. We share a lot of information with you in terms of new things that we've done. So let me try to kind of bring it all together. If you're building an application for Android Market, one of the first things you should think about is make sure it's a great application. Make sure this application utilizes all the great features in Android Market, on Android platform. Make sure the application looks great on those devices. Each user on their device are always looking for the best application on their device. So they're not necessarily interested in ports. At the same time, you should really think about broad distribution. Right? We have done a lot of work to make it easy for you to address 90+% of the install base. Take advantage of that. Make sure that when we think about pricing, you need to price it in relative to your competition. It's not how much you think your application is worth, it's how much the user is willing to pay in relative to all the other products that are available, both on Android Market and also on the AdMob App Store. Remember I mentioned it's extremely important when you're launching an application that those few initial ratings and comments could really either make you or break you. Make it easy. Assuming you have a great application, make it easy for them to rate and provide feedback for your application, and that will help propel you into some of these new lists that we have. Immediately after you launch a product, really think about marketing. We've done a lot of good work in surfacing a lot of lists to make it easy for you to promote your application, but we need help from you to make sure you rise above the noise, get into these lists. It's important to monitor user feedback, as I mentioned earlier, respond to them, and provide timely update. And that's important in the beginning, in the middle, and throughout the process. What you definitely should not do is launch a product prematurely. We've seen cases where developers launch a product maturely, get bad ratings, and they have a tough time digging their way out of it. It's also important not to require excessive permissions. Where you require permissions, especially those that seem not as intuitive, help developers understand, help users understand why in the description. Where you don't need the permission, don't ask for it. And it's important to take a look in general across all the applications in that category and not overprice. Okay? So I hope you find the information that we share with you useful. I hope you find the new features that we're launching today and launching soon also useful for you. And from the Android team, our goal and our success really lies with you. Your success is our success. What we think about every day is what can we do to increase the number of downloads of your applications to users? What can we do to help you monetize more with your investment with Android? Your feedback is also important to us. Your feedback helps us prioritize what we need to work on first. So keep those coming. So with that, thank you for being here.